The Legend of Negrinho do Pastoreio. In the heart of the desolate plains of southern Brazil, where the winds howl like lost souls and the nights stretch on endlessly, there is a tale older than memory itself, whispered from generation to generation. It is a story of suffering and redemption, one that seeps into the bones like a cold that never quite leaves. It is the story of the Negrinho do Pastoreio, the black boy of the herd, a figure whose fate is etched in the very soil of the pampas, a symbol of pain, injustice, and a haunting revenge that transcends the grave. They say he was no more than a child, a boy born into chains, enslaved under the brutal hands of a landowner known only as the master, a man of wealth and cruelty, who ruled over his estate with the same iron fist that held his whip. The boy was nothing to the master, less than nothing, a disposable tool to obey without question or hesitation. Day after day, the Negrinho toiled under the unrelenting sun, his feet blistered and bleeding, his body broken by labor and abuse. Yet he bore it all in silence, his eyes reflecting only the vast emptiness of the plains, as though he had long since learned that hope was not meant for him. But the master was never satisfied. His wealth and power only fed his cruelty, and he took pleasure in tormenting. One day, he gave Negrinho a task so simple that failure would mean certain punishment. The boy was to watch over a herd of horses during the night. It seemed easy enough, but the master's warning was clear: should any of the horses be lost, the consequences would be severe. As the pale moon rose and the plains were bathed in silver light, Negrinho did his best to stay alert, his eyes scanning the shadows, his small hands gripping the reins. But exhaustion, born from years of unrelenting toil, weighed heavy on his young body. It was then that the darkness seemed to shift, the wind carrying an eerie silence, and as his eyes fluttered closed for just a moment, the herd vanished into the blackness of the night. When the master awoke and found out, his rage was as wild and untamable as the storm that brewed over the horizon. He seized the boy, dragging him by his collar, hurling accusations, his voice like thunder. He screamed, his hand reaching for the cruel whip that hung. Negrinho trembled, his voice small and soft, promising that he would find them. But the master was deaf to the boy's words. And so began the nightmare. The master lashed the boy with merciless fury, each strike tearing flesh, leaving dark welts across Negrinho's back. But even as blood stained the dirt, the boy's silence remained unbroken, his lips never uttering a sound. The other slaves watched from a distance, helpless to intervene, their own hearts heavy with the weight of the boy's suffering. But the master was not yet finished. He bound Negrinho to a post in the middle of the field, leaving him there under the scorching sun without food, without water, just his small, broken body against the cruel elements, and the unending pain of a punishment far beyond what any child could endure. But even then, the boy refused to cry. He refused to beg. Night fell once more, and the cold wind swept over the plains. The stars, distant and indifferent, blinked in the dark sky. But Negrinho's fate was sealed. The master returned the next day, his anger still burning hot, and with it came the final blow. With a sneer of contempt, he dragged Negrinho to an anthill, one teeming with vicious, biting insects, and left him there to die, his body left at the mercy of nature's cruelties. "Let the ants have him," the master muttered, his voice as cold as death itself. Hours passed. The sun rose and set, and still the boy lay there, his skin torn and ravaged by the merciless bites of the ants, his body weak and broken. But something strange began to stir on the winds. As the night fell once more, the air around Negrinho shimmered, and from the darkness emerged a soft, glowing light. The Virgin Mary herself, clothed in radiant, white robes, appeared before the dying boy. She looked upon him not with pity, but with sorrowful compassion. Kneeling beside him, she gently touched his brow, and in that moment, the pain and suffering that had defined his short life seemed to melt away. With the Virgin Mary's blessing, Negrinho was lifted from the earth, his small, fragile body freed from its suffering, his soul now cleansed and pure. His spirit rose above the plains, and with it, the lost horses returned, wild, untamed, yet loyal to the boy who had never betrayed them. The legend says that Negrinho became a guardian of the land, a spirit of the pastures, watching over the animals and the lost, his presence a reminder of the cruelty he had endured, and the divine justice that had finally been granted. But the master's punishment did not end with the boy's death. From that day forward, the master found no peace. His sleep was tormented by visions of the boy, his dark eyes staring back at him, silent and accusatory. The wind that blew across the plains carried whispers of Negrinho's name, and the horses would vanish in the night, only to return, untouched, as if guided by unseen hands. The master, once so powerful and proud, was driven to madness, haunted by the very boy he had sought to destroy. It is said that even now, on nights when the moon is high and the air is thick with the scent of the grasslands, the spirit of Negrinho do Pastoreio still roams the plains, a small figure in the shadows, his eyes glowing softly in the darkness. He searches for the lost animals, lost souls, and those who wander too far into the unknown. And if you call upon him with pure intentions, if you light a candle in his name, he may help guide you back to safety, for though his life was marked by unimaginable cruelty, his spirit remains a beacon of hope for those who need it most. But beware, those who carry evil in their hearts, those who seek to harm the innocent, may feel the weight of his gaze upon them, a gaze that remembers every lash of the whip, every ounce of suffering, and every injustice that was ever inflicted. The legend of Negrinho do Pastoreio endures as a reminder that no cruelty goes unanswered, and that even in the darkest of nights, there is a force that watches over the weak, one that will never forget. Did you enjoy knowing this Brazilian myth? Subscribe to the channel and share with your friends. See you next time.